All right, boys, what's going on? Hopefully, everyone's doing well. Second live stream of the day, as advertised. We're going to be focusing on the big fight card coming up this weekend in Riyadh. We got Paulie Malignaggi, Tommy Rainone. You guys know them from their boxing careers and their show. So, boys, a lot of the boys who watch my content watch your content, and we
What's
could
up,
get
guys?
straight into it. Yeah, so we'll get straight into it. How I see the eye patch is off, looking better.
Yeah, I don't have to always wear the eye patch. Now it's darkened, so I got the lights a little bit dimmed in my house. But the eye patch is just to protect from the light because
Okay.
it's like
Yeah,
I
because
think people will get the wrong idea. Like I'm blind in the eye. I can see. It's just a little bit more blurry in this eye. So in order to hope to get back the way I used to see before, I try to protect it from too much light.
yeah, we were kind of worried, man, watching how that thing played out. I was talking to Tommy off air actually
Mhm.
because I know you guys have the bare knuckle fights going on down in Florida. What is that this weekend?
Yeah, this
We got
weekend.
a we got an Aussie fighting. Big Daddy Lucas Brown is on that
Bro,
card,
I know
Trouble.
he's got a tough fight, bro. That
bro.
Trujillo is Trujillo for me is the scariest guy in the whole sport. Honestly,
The Cuban,
yeah,
yeah,
Cuban heavyweight. That there's a lot of destructive guys in the sport, but to me, Trujillo is the scariest guy in the sport, man. I mean, it'll be interesting because Brown is a tough guy, but dude, Trujillo of all people, Trujillo is a rough dude, man, and he's very good too. He's
yeah.
very good.
Tommy and I were talking about the odds, and for some reason in Australia, man, none of the books, Sports Bet, Bet365, Dabble, none of the books here
They were
offers bare knuckle, and
they
they
were
were saying that you were a 3-1 dog against in your what was it, Tommy John? What was his name?
yeah, good John, good John.
Good John, Good John. They
Yeah,
had you as the dog going into that.
yeah, Garrett Davies. I found out the day before because I never really liked to. I mean, I used to try to look into the odds of my fights and stuff, but later part of my career, I stopped trying to do that because it would play on my head. So I wasn't even looking into the odds at all the whole game. And then Garrett Davies, the weigh-in, told me that I was a 3-1 dog. So I was like, oh wow. But again, I just play like I don't know, because can't let too many opinions get into your head. Whether you're a favorite, whether you're an underdog, it doesn't really matter. You still have to perform.
Tommy, did you get action on that, or I never asked you actually? Were you able
I,
to get action on that?
I wish, bro. I kept checking the apps while he was walking to the ring. I was checking the apps.
Yeah. You know what's
Okay.
crazy about that they don't have Lucas is in Australia the bookies will probably clean up because I'm sure people would all bet Lucas Brown, and I don't think he's gonna win, bro. I mean,
No,
again,
no, man.
Trujillo for me is Lucas is tough, respect to him, but bro, Trujillo is a scary guy, man. I'm telling you, I've seen him fight several times.
And the thing about Lucas, man, people forget this guy was the first ever Australian boxing heavyweight champion.
Mhm.
I think he won the WBA. Goes to like Germany or Russia, pops dirty allegedly for tainted
Yeah,
meat, and then they stripped him. And then he would just put his hand up every like 3 months to fight anyone. But
yeah,
he's taken a lot of damage. What is he? Probably in his mid 40s now.
46,
yeah.
But
bro.
Very,
46.
good
very,
guy though.
very,
Good
very
guy.
tough. Yeah, no, I've heard good things. And very
Very
tough.
nice guy, man.
Yeah,
Awesome person.
yeah, and very tough guy too. Like he comes to fight every single time. When I talk about Trujillo being scary, it's because he's heavy-handed. He's very skilled, and he's very aggressive with both head punches and body punches, but in a skilled way. And he, like I said, he's a very big puncher. I've seen him stop guys who were always very durable, and he went through them like a hot knife through butter. So that's why I say Trujillo is very scary. But Lucas is a really tough guy.
Yeah.
It's not a disrespect to Lucas. It's just. Like I said, if we're talking about betting, I would assume the Australian bookmakers would clean up on this one because I'm sure the Aussies would want to bet Lucas, and I don't think he's going to win.
Yeah, I think it's his time. I mean, hopefully he's getting paid well. And if you have a chance to chat with him,
Mm-hmm.
this dude is, I grew up in Northeast Ohio. We're all
Yeah,
around the same age. So like
bro, you
when
got
I
to
met,
talk about how you wound up there, but oh,
bro, I don't want the boys on the chat. Don't get tired. They always hear this shit. You guys are the guests, man. These boys want to pick your brain. We'll talk about that.
I got family in Australia. I never met them, but I got family in
Oh,
Australia. Yeah,
dude,
yeah.
the
Because
Italian,
yeah,
the Italian, my girlfriend's from Sicily. Her father's from Calabria. The dad speaks no English, no
yeah,
Australian.
yeah.
Missing a thumb. Missing a thumb.
So difficult. Yeah.
But
So that's the stereotypical story. My grandfather's been in America since 1977, still speaks no English. So
yeah, none.
we're all the same no matter where we immigrate to.
100%. See, I grew up in Northeast Ohio, Youngstown, where there's a lot of Italians and
Yeah,
Slovaks.
yeah,
So
yeah.
boxing town. So
That's
boys,
that's the Pavlik mix, right? The Slovak
I
and the Italian, because
we grew
I'm a Sicilian.
dude. Kelly and I played we were winning little league baseball tournaments together. He was my catcher, I was the pitcher for like 6 years. So Kelly and I are like, we're real tight since we were like kids.
That's crazy. Anybody charging that amount, that catcher's coming to Florida.
Bro, Kelly wasn't even supposed to be the fighter. His older brother Rick, his older brother Rick was supposed to be the boxer. Kelly was a hell of a catcher, throwing out guys from his knees when we were like 11 years old. Ball player, great athlete.
Bud Rodriguez style, man. Wow.
Yeah. So look, I'm reading these comments. Everybody's stoked to see Tommy. Everybody, because a lot of the boys guys watch your content too, and you know they got to wait once a week to see your stuff drop. They see my big head twice a day on the live stream. So one of the fights I wanted to personally ask you boys about, and so they could pick your brain. I got it pinned here. Mason versus Noakes. I'm gonna give you boys both the stage. Tommy, you give your opinion, then Paulie, you guys interject. I'm gonna step out of this one.
Yeah. So with Mason, I think that he's the total package. There are some variables that we haven't seen yet, and me and you discussed this a little bit, Johnny, and I talked about it on my show today. The only thing that I'm worried about and what nobody's talking about is the fact that Mason's never been past the 6th round. So there's a 12-round fight for the vacant WBO. He's gonna, he's in there with the toughest opponent he's ever been in with. Noakes is 17-0 with 15 knockouts. He's been that 10-round distance twice, so he's been there before. And Mason's never been past the 6th round, so he's never seen the second half of a fight. So to me, that's it's a gray area that's a little bit alarming. I mean, can he pass the test? Most likely, but we don't know until we know.
Yeah, for me, Mason is in the mold of one of those smart, aggressive boxers, and I think I would like to think that getting dropped a couple of fights back, because the variable for me is his chin, right? I mean, because Noakes seems to be able to be a legitimate puncher, but Mason, understanding your own mortality with your chin is important. I think I would assume he's matured since getting dropped in that fight a few fights back. He's always looked lights out to me. With the exception of those knockdowns in that fight, and even then he got up and went through the guy. But I think that really gave him an understanding of his own mortality, because I think a fighter always has to know what they are and know what they are not. And Mason is a guy who to me strikes me as that smart boxer. Aggressive because he can punch a little bit. He's got some knockout power, but it's more so from just being so dominant that he gets to stoppages. I'm not sure he's quite as hard a puncher as Noakes, to tell you the truth. But I think he can sort of domesticate Noakes with that style of his and that jab. One thing I noticed about Noakes, and I was telling Tommy earlier, Noakes seems to be very destructive when he gets close in and manages to get off those punches. But he hasn't shown me a real way to close the gap against in any other way except like the front door. And I don't think Mason is the kind of guy you can just walk in the front door with. You're gonna have to be a bit tricky closing the gap. Closing the distance is one of the most underrated things that people don't seem to understand when they compare fighters. If a guy seems destructive as he gets, but he doesn't have a way to really close the distance, then he's not going to be able to close that distance on a world-class guy. I'm not saying Noakes doesn't know how to, but I've just noticed that he hasn't really shown me any creative ways to close the gap in any of the fights that he's even won, even when he's looked good. When he gets close, he looks destructive. But, Mason's got a very good jab, hand speed, reflexes. It will catch you coming in, which really can turn you into a hesitant person. And I don't know. I feel like Mason is one of the guys who has a potential future of boxing.
Yeah, Paulie and Tommy, shout out. We got Kingdom Life. He's one of our VIPs in the Discord. He wanted me to bring up to you guys. He says, talk about Noakes has never been in with any power puncher. I guess it might be a UK thing or something to put them in with those soft punching guys, or maybe it's the style. What's your thoughts on that, knowing where Sam Noakes has been and what he has in front of him this weekend with Abdullah Mason?
Yeah, you know what? That's an interesting point too. Kind of like nobody was talking about, as I said earlier, that Mason has not been past the 6th round. You're right. I really didn't dive into that too deeply myself, that Noakes really hasn't been in with a lot of big punchers. What I did talk about on the show earlier with Paulie today was that I watched the fight with Ryan Walsh last night, where he had to go the 10-round distance, and Ryan Walsh is a southpaw, and Noakes was not coming forward in that fight. Now, if you saw that fight, you know that Walsh is an older guy, he's a durable guy, he's never been stopped, but 39 years old, he's slow, he's very hittable, and Noakes looked uncomfortable in that fight. Yes, on paper he won that fight every single round, but in reality, he was getting backed up. He didn't look comfortable getting backed up. And I'm wondering to myself, what's going to happen if Mason backs him up? Because, again, the southpaw style is going to be the same, but you're talking about a guy with explosiveness, speed, athleticness. Mason checks every single box. So there are a lot of little intangibles on both ends of the spectrum to think about.
Boys, before we get into, I'm going to put both of you on the spot regarding the money play. There's a lot of smart bettors here, a lot of guys who are looking for the value. But before we get that, Paulie, I want to ask you a question about, you mentioned the Johan Vasquez fight when Abdullah got dropped actually twice. And it's something Tommy and I were talking about. He went to the well twice with a rear uppercut. You know, Tommy made a point off air. He was like, generally a good coach will tell you, a boxer, you throw that rear uppercut either in a combination or off a counter. He was like, he throws that the first time, he gets caught, he gets dropped, and then he goes to the well again and doesn't make that adjustment. Now, he didn't have to pay for it. It wasn't on the world stage. You know, what is your thoughts on that? Making, you know, we know he got Vasquez out of there. We've seen instances in the past for world title fights with younger guys undefeated making a mistake like that and then paying for that mistake. Does that bother you with Mason?
My thoughts are this. I think in that fight was a learning lesson. I think you come out of fights and you say, okay, what have I learned? I think that that fight was his learning lesson. Having said that, I do believe in the rear hand uppercut when it's against the opposite stance. You know, a lefty rear uppercut against a right-hander and a right-handed rear uppercut against a lefty, because the path is there. I particularly used to like it against aggressive southpaws, though. I don't like it against guys who back up. But Johan Vasquez, remember, was kind of an aggressive guy. So he is there for that rear uppercut. It's just, you know, you got to time it right. You got to make sure the other guy's not timing you with his overhand shot. But I particularly liked it against aggressive southpaws to the gut. The way Vasily Jurov used to use his left hand. I used to watch. I learned to fight lefties by watching lefties, because against the opposite stance, the same thing works that they can use. You know, so I used to like the fact that Jurov used to use that uppercut to the gut.
Also, Boutte was a master at it.
Boutte came later on and did the same thing. Boutte did the same thing exactly. He had a couple of stoppages with that. But I think that, you know, when it comes to Abdullah is more of an athletic fighter, you know, and I think that he's also a cerebral fighter. So I think that when it comes to that particular experience, I think he's going to have taken that with him. Also, his father seems like a mature guy. He's not one of these fathers that are trying to live through his sons. And Abdullah seems like a mature kid
Haney.
in his demeanor, you know. But I don't know. I think that he's the kind of kid who learns from his experiences. You know, you guys see certain fights, you know, you saw Adrian Broner on the way up. You kind of got the feeling he was never going to learn, right? But I feel like Abdullah Mason is a sort of a student of the game. I feel like he's, you know, I think of something like this. Remember when what's the name? Who's the kid whose title they're fighting for now that lost the title on the scale? Keyshawn Davis. Remember at the press conference, was it Keyshawn Davis that was talking trash to Abdullah on the undercard, and Abdullah was like not taking the bait?
Abdullah got lifted to the main event spot.
Yeah. And Abdullah wasn't taking the bait. You know what I'm saying? No. Like, that's really difficult for a young hotshot, you know, because Abdullah was already a young hotshot at that point, you know. So that's really, I mean, I've been young. I've been the young prospect, like, you know, and there's not a lot that you're going to bite your tongue for when you're in that position. It's hard to be humble when you're in that position and everybody's, you know, kissing your ass and whatnot, and you know you're the goods and you're that young hotshot, young upstart. I really was impressed. Just things like that I've noticed about his character, and that he's a mature kid. And even in the Johan Vasquez fight, if you look at the post-fight interview, you know, he was mature about it. You know, he wasn't talking trash or anything, you know, like afterwards and trying to make excuses for it. I think he's just an improving fighter, and I think his performances since have shown that. And again, I think Noakes is a dangerous guy, but I think Noakes is also the kind of guy, once you start to domesticate him, I think he's going to not have many answers. I think Noakes is what he is. He's very good. He's solid. He's a big puncher. He's dangerous. But I think once that puzzle is solved, there's no other pieces he's got in his bag, you know. And so I think that's why Abdullah, once Abdullah takes control of the fight, I don't foresee Noakes being able to do anything about it, and it's downhill from there.
Tommy, are you surprised with these odds? Noakes is only a four, like in Australia, the $4.10. It's about a 3-1 dog here. Money line on Abdullah gets on a $100 unit, only gets you $28 back. The draw 16-1. 100 on Noakes on the money line gets your money back plus 310. What's the play here in terms of money value play? Maybe a method of victory. Do you see Mason on points? Do you see him stopping Noakes? What's the move here?
I'm not going to get greedy on that one, because believe it or not, when I first started parlaying a couple of months ago using Mason in my parlay, she was a minus 600, Johnny.
Yeah.
Minus 600. So those odds have dropped to 350. So, hey, listen, I'm content with 350. I'm cool with 350. because again, this is probably I mean, realistically, it's probably a 90-10 fight, but I mean, there is a 10% chance that Noakes catches this guy with something,
You think
or
it's a 90-10 fight?
it
Wow.
could,
Okay.
that might be pushing him. A 70-30 fight. I'll say 70-30. But as far as the minus 350, who knows how good Noakes' chin is? Mason is very athletic. He's more than capable of boxing, using his jab, using angles, and just like Paulie said, domesticating this guy. And why take chances? So if Noakes' chin does hold up to some of the early firepower from Mason, why take chances? If you can beat this guy with your jab, keep him at range, and just
Well,
move around.
that's a good point, Dominic. Because I think if Noakes doesn't land something big early, I think he's going to get beat up. I think it's going to be like a slow beating. That because Mason's not going to take those crazy chances because he's going to know Noakes is a big puncher and it's his world title fight and he's never been 12 rounds, so he's going to he's going to have a sense of the pace and to keep a comfortable pace in the fight because the point that you made about he's never gone past 6 rounds also comes into play here. So I think he's going to slowly dictate the way you're saying, Tommy, with the jab and just pick them apart. And if Noakes doesn't land anything early, I just think it's going to be it's going to start to unravel for Noakes little by little, and Abdul is going to start to find them with more creative punches, more and more as the fight gets going. As long as Abdul doesn't get overconfident to where he sees he's landing so much and he's starting to beat up this guy and he starts to get a little careless, because then Noakes is always going to have that puncher's chance that Abdul's got to be careful with.
And that's what I spoke to Johnny about when I was saying that it comes down to, honestly, for me, it comes down to composure and boxing IQ for Mason. As long as he has those couple of intangible things in his favor, he wins this fight. Noakes is going to want to be on the inside and make it a rough affair and just try and rough him up. That's his real path to victory, just landing something, maybe breaking Mason down over the course of the fight, assuming that he can take the firepower that he gets hit with, because he's going to get touched up. So it's all up to Abdullah Mason to basically just stay composed, stay relaxed, and just and be true to himself.
My biggest question, and Paulie, and both of you boys could maybe talk about this. When I'm breaking the film down on Sam, and I've seen Abdullah fight live before. I've never seen Sam fight live. It's really hard for me to tell how fast he is and how good his reflexes and timing is. We know you want to be a better timing, and I know Abdullah thrives in all of that. When you guys were fighting and getting ready for opponents, what is that something that you don't find out until the fight starts? Like, oh shit, this dude is his timing is a lot better than I thought it was, or his speed's slower than I thought it was. I got this dude in the bag. Because if I see right off jump that Sam isn't going to be able to handle the reflexes, speed, timing of Abdullah, I'm going to take the under.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the sort of the safer plays, I guess, as far as I wouldn't say safer plays. No, not really a safe play, but I think the fight not to go to distance is an interesting factor here because God forbid Noakes lands a big punch, it's a stoppage, and it's you could see Abdullah breaking Noakes down and beating him up, and maybe getting a later stoppage. Because Noakes, for me personally, the way I foresee the fight, I think Noakes has to be a tough guy to go the distance. Because I think once Abdullah starts getting going, I think he's going to start beating him up, and the only question is, can Abdullah stay composed, like Tommy said.
And another point, I've been parlaying this, as I said, for a couple of months now. I've been using Mason in my parlays, but I've also been doing parlays where the fight does not go the distance, where one of these two gets stopped, right? Because to me, the only way that Mason loses this fight is via knockout. If he gets caught with something, I don't see him losing on the scorecards. I think he's too good of a boxer. I think he's got too much talent. I think he's head and shoulders above Noakes in all areas. But punching power is punching power, and punch resistance is punch resistance. So I've also been betting on this fight to not go the distance as well. So in a perfect world, Mason's going to win by stoppage, and I'll win in both directions.
All right, sounds good, boys. We're going to move on because time is limited. We could chat boxing for hours. I know the boys only have about 40 more minutes. We're going to move on to Bam versus Puma. I know everybody on my chat has taped this, and I wanted to ask you boys, I'll leave you the mic. I'm going to pull the odds up right now. Bam Rodriguez versus Puma. How do you guys see this one going?
I don't see anybody beating Bam right now, not in that weight class. So after watching a little more of Martinez, I mean, he's a brave guy. He's unorthodox. He puts his everything into every punch. For a guy that only has 9 knockouts, he fights like a guy that's 18-0 with 18 knockouts, not 18-0 with 9 knockouts. He also, Bam will punch with you and counter with you. So he's going to leave a lot of opportunities for Bam to land. Bam's also a very accurate puncher. I don't see this fight going the distance, and I honestly think Bam gets rid of him. I think Bam gets rid of him, no problem. The more I watched on Martinez, he's very hittable. He disconnects on defense. he doesn't counter much. So it's either offense or defense with him. And you're not going to go on defense with Bam. He could have done that with the Japanese guy that he just fought twice. He did that with him a little bit in the early rounds. But that was like Rock'em Sock'em Robots to a degree. So
He got dropped too.
Yeah, he got dropped, and he got dropped late in the fight. Good point. He got dropped in the 10th round by trading with a hook. He punched with him, got caught with a hook, and went down. And you're not, and I'm going blank on his name, Johnny.
Ioka.
Ioka's not a huge puncher. Ioka's only got 16 knockouts. He's an older guy as well. Hasn't had a knockout in years, and he put him on the canvas. Obviously, Bam is a much bigger puncher, and obviously, Bam is a much better finisher.
Paulie.
Yeah, I foresee the same thing. I mean, me and Tommy discussed this fight. I think the fact that Martinez fights like he's a big puncher, but he's not, is going to put him in the path of taking a beating. You know, he's going to keep trying, but you can't even you can be the toughest guy. You can't take a beating from Bam and go the distance. So I think, me and Tommy, we were discussing this, and Tommy was saying, and I agree strongly that this is probably a stoppage on the part of Martinez, which can drastically bring down the odds, because the odds are unplayable with Martinez, with a Bam on the money line. But Bam by stoppage now becomes a bit more realistic to play.
Yeah, I got to be honest. Last night I was up late my time, where I'm a day ahead of you boys, and Tommy and I were going back and forth watching Puma's tape. And I've watched Puma probably for the last few years, and Tommy sent me this footage from he was fighting a South African from 2020. I generally don't like to rewind the clock too many years, but technically he gets dropped by the South African with an uppercut, and he fights really brave. If you take Bam on the money line here at $1.11, the fight to not go the distance at $1.34, or Bam by knockout at 145. After watching the tape last night of Puma, I went heavy on Bam by knockout at 145.
Yeah.
Is that the play here?
Yeah, we got him at minus 200 here. For some reason, your odds in Australia are always a little better than our odds in America.
Well, because the draw screws us, though. This app forces us to three-way bet. So if there's a draw, everything you lose. It doesn't just get voided.
Ooh, okay.
And we had a lot of draws over the last 6 months, man. There were some horrible calls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
listen, I think in the footage that I showed you yesterday, I mean, he wasn't in there with a killer. He was in there with a guy that I think the guy was 11-2, ultimately finished his career 13-4. He was a guy from South Africa who really didn't fight anybody himself. And I watched that whole 11 rounds before the stoppage, and he was behind the scorecards. He came on late. He was bleeding. He was knocked down. He was getting hit with a lot of shots. And yeah, I don't like to go. Everybody improves, A good fighter is going to improve. So yeah, that fight was a few years back, but it is an example of him not having that kind of concrete chin, where I've seen him down on the canvas twice now. And you're fighting Bam, you're going to get touched a lot more with a guy like Bam than you are with a guy in South Africa who's 11-2 that wasn't supposed to put you on the canvas in the first place.
Before we move on, Paulie, you want to add anything to that? Or are you good?
No, I'm good, man. I think the fight is pretty much self-explanatory on that one. There's not too many other directions you can go in that way in that fight.
No, but it's going to be exciting. We know that it's going to be exciting as hell. That's the fight.
We're going to talk about the light heavyweight between David Benavidez and Anthony Yarde. How do you guys see this one going?
It's Benavidez is a top 10 pound for pound guy, right? So we got two guys that are top 10 pound for pound guys in Rodriguez and Benavidez on that card. So both undefeated. The chances of a pound for pound guy getting upset is dramatically low. Benavidez is firing on all cylinders right now. Even at light heavyweight, he's not stopping guys. He's obviously, the guys that he's fighting are more durable. They have better punch resistance. They're bigger guys. He's not punching as hard as he was at 68, but he was never a one punch guy. He was a cumulative puncher that wore you down because he gets stronger every round. And I'm sure Johnny, Yarde has had stamina issues throughout his career. In the fights where he did lose to Beterbiev and Kovalov, he was very competitive. He was actually ahead on the.
Some people were saying he was beating Beterbiev until he wasn't.
They had him up, I think it was 67-66. They had him up by a round. The fight was in the UK, and Beterbiev needed to get that stoppage in order to get a decision in the UK, most likely without scoring any knockdowns. And ultimately, Yarde started gassing out. Now, Beterbiev, as hard as he hits and as much pressure he puts on you, it's a different style. Benavidez is just every round he gets stronger and stronger. If you're a guy with stamina issues, that's a big warning right there. So I think that he's dangerous early. I think Yarde's very dangerous early because he's a very explosive puncher. He's very athletic. He's a good fighter, very good fighter. But he's one of those guys that it seems like he's never put it all together, And to ask him to put it all together against Benavidez, who's just getting better and better with every fight, and he's in his prime. it's a tall order. So I see a second half stoppage, a potential for a 7-12 stoppage for Yard getting stopped here.
Yeah, for me, Yard is very, very tough. He's tough as they come, but there's always, it seems like there's something missing there. Like he can't get over the hump. Sometimes he's defensively irresponsible. He's sometimes too tough for his own good, and he lets the pace get away from him a lot. He's a guy who, again, Tommy brought up the stamina issues, and when you're a guy, okay, if you have stamina issues, you start to work on ways to figure out how to make your opponent fight at a pace that you're going to be able to control. And Yard just, he fights, and when you fight, and you accept that kind of battle, you got to understand that the pace can get away from you. And if you're a guy with stamina issues, you got to understand that you can't let fights get to that point. But he always see when it doesn't go his way, he's always seeming to let that happen. So I don't see him with any way to control the pace. And if Benavidez is the one controlling the pace, I think he's going to eventually gas Yard out. But Yard is going to come out firing. And I think the early part of the fight could be a good tussle. But I think ultimately Benavidez, wears him out, and maybe Benavidez gets the first stoppage at the heavyweight division.
And
we
know
Yard's been
Johnny. I talked about on my show earlier, on the show earlier today. Benavidez has gone the distance twice in a row, and I believe it's 3 of his last 4 fights, if you count the Plant fight, the Kalen Plant fight. So he's hungry for a knockout at light heavyweight because he's hearing what people are saying. He's not the same guy at 175, not the same puncher at least. So I think he's going out there with a chip on his shoulder to get rid of a guy that he's going to be compared to a guy like Beterbiev because they want him to fight Bivol, right? The big fight to be made at 175 is Beterbiev versus Bivol. So I think he wants to make a statement here, and I think he's going to want to stop Yard here.
So the size of Yard, the punching power, is it fair to say that Yard will be the biggest and the hardest puncher Benavidez has faced? Considering it's a light heavy, I mean he's bigger than Morrell, bigger puncher than Morrell. Morrell wasn't a natural light heavyweight anyway. So does that when you look,
I think the punching power is a risk, but is he as durable as say a Vosdick?
That's
Vosdick,
the one. Vosdick.
You knew Vosdick was going to be there, and he wasn't going to get stopped. Yard may be a bit more explosive, but it's only a bit of a front runner situation with him.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the big question. That's why the boys are tapping in. Guys, we're floating between 80 and 100 people. Make sure you're thumbing up. Make sure you follow Paulie and Tommy, their fight breakdown show. That's linked. I'm going to pin that in the description. But the big question here is the odds, Benny on the money line at $1.10. It's like, how sexy are we going to get? Are we going decision at 295, which I mean for value, or are we going knockout at 167? Or is there a knockdown prop in play? I'm not a big knockdown prop guy. Maybe share some insights on that.
Here's another option for you, John. Do you get the odds on overs as far as rounds go? For example,
let's check it.
Like 7.5 rounds, for example.
Yep. Go on. I'll pull it up.
Maybe check what the odds are for the fight to go over 7.5. I'm thinking it's probably in the ballpark of like a maybe a minus 150 situation or less.
We're getting over. They're offering us over 9.5 at $1.87, which gets you $87 on the 100.
Not half is tricky. You know what? Honestly, I think that Beterbiev is Beterbiev. I'm sorry,
Benavidez.
Gonna get rid of him. I think it happens the second half of the fight. So what do you got odds wise for a stoppage 7 through 12?
7 through 12. We're getting. See, it's giving me 9 through 12. They're kind of handicapping me. Oh, here we go. I found it. Benavidez 7 to 12, 265.
Plus 265.
Yeah. Plus 165. Plus 165.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, how could you not? I mean, I think that I don't see him getting rid of Yard early. Yard is dangerous early. Number one. Number two, the guy's talented and he's durable. I mean, listen, he took a lot of punishment from Beterbiev and from Kovalov, who are 2 of the biggest light heavyweight punches we've seen in the last maybe ever. Right.
And Benavidez isn't a one punch guy, right? Unless he stops him with a body shot, which I see it the second half of the fight myself.
Yeah, Paulie, and I don't remember even off the top of my head Benavidez scoring any body shot knockouts. I'm sure he did early in his career, but he's not a guy that I think of as a guy that can really get you to the body. I think of him as just an avalanche that just keeps falling on top of you and just beating you down, and he gets stronger every round and steals your heart. I mean, Caleb Plant went to 12 rounds only because he got away with a lot of holding. He was taking a really good beating 8 through 12. I don't see Yard going 12 rounds. Also, I believe Yard's only been 12 rounds one time. It might be two, and it might have been both times with London, right?
Lyndon Arthur. I know
I'm
the
sorry,
first
Lyndon
time.
Arthur. Lyndon Arthur.
The first time he got stopped. He got stopped. Then he won a decision, and then he won a decision.
Correct.
Or there might have been a draw mixed in, but I know the Yard's only been stopped twice. I thought he was stopped against, wasn't it Kovalev
Better be off.
and Beterbiev? And so
Yeah.
you're saying how long? I'm gonna pull it up. We'll see how many times has he actually gone all 12.
Yeah, I think it's only those. I think it's only those two times.
We'll check it out. 27-3. Yeah, not a lot. Not a lot.
Yeah. So he's also, oddly enough, he's gone the distance in his last two fights. So now you're starting to wonder. I mean, obviously, the last thing to go on a fighter is his punching power. And like Paulie said, maybe he's trying to pace himself a little differently. So maybe that's why he. But if you look, his last fight that he went 10 rounds with, and Yard is a very big puncher. That guy got knocked out in the first round like 2 fights later, which is
no, he's coming off the Lyndon Arthur victory. Arthur just beat Bradley Ray. If that's
the
what
one,
you're talking.
the one before that.
Vilkins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy got stopped, I believe, in the first round, like his following fight.
He did.
Yeah.
Ralph Vilkins. Yeah, that was it.
So that tells me that guy doesn't have a concrete chin per se, where you're like, all right, this guy went the distance with Yard because this guy has that kind of chin. You can't stop everybody. The guy got stopped in the first round.
So you boys are confident with Benavidez stopping Yard?
I mean, listen, I think Beterbiev wins the fight for sure. Could it go the distance? I mean, how much punching power has he lost at 175? That's ultimately.
My thing is we've never seen him stop anyone at light heavy. And he couldn't stop Morrell. Morrell's good, but Morrell was on. Man, who did he fight? He fought the kid, Iman Katayev. He fought a 9-0 Iman Katayev, who's he's promoted by George Kambosos' pops.
Those Russians are punchers, though, Johnny. Those Russians are a lot of them are punchers. Drop Morrell.
That dude was built like a goddamn.
Guy had failed a bunch of steroid tests, didn't he?
Yeah. They just let him fight. They let the big fella fight.
And by the way, I won money on that fight. Thank goodness.
So did I.
Johnny, Morrell lost that fight. Morrell lost the fight.
Hey, Paulie, so the other day when Delgado ended up getting the decision against Goyaz, my Discord was talking shit because one of my buddies is a clubber, Rayo Medina. He fought an 8-rounder in May against Goyaz, and Goyaz lost every round. Now, I don't know if it's because he had just gotten beaten up against Matias, but I told the world, I was like, Goyaz is done. We know what happened. Delgado got a gift. And Tommy was like, dude, people were complaining that we got a gift. I'm like, how many times did we lose money because
Johnny, I'll tell you what, when it comes to gambling, people have to keep one thing in mind. And I learned this in my career as well. You have to keep the politics in mind as well. Some guys aren't going to get a decision anyway. You know what I'm saying? So when they give you, sometimes when a fight looks so juicy and it's like, oh, they shouldn't be that much of an underdog. You're right. He shouldn't be that much of an underdog, but he probably has no shot of getting a decision anyway because they'll rob him in case he does win. So therefore, the odds will reflect that. I remember my fight with Adrian Bronner. Well, Bronner was like an 11-1 favorite. And I'm like, it's no shot this guy's as much of a favorite. I'm going to bet myself in like 17 different ways. I was making 7 figures of the fight anyway. I bet like in a million different ways. And then at the end of the fight, I found out I was never going to get a decision anyway. I found out WBA had already sent a belt before the fight, which is unbelievable, because you're supposed to get my copy and then you give it back to me and you get your copy a week later. WBA had already sent a copy of the belt for Broner, after he beat me, quote unquote. So I was never going to get that decision anyway. And at that point, I realized to myself, when it comes to gambling, you got to keep the politics in mind because sometimes the odds aren't reflecting the reality of the fight. And you're right about that. But they may reflect the politics of the fight. You got to keep in mind both the reality and the politics of the fight when putting in a bet. Can your guy may be a live dog, but under the circumstances, can he get a decision? Will he be treated fairly? Whose promoter are they fighting in? Whose hometown are they fighting in? Who's the lead promoter? And what are they known for?
The Crocker Donovan fight that just happened as a prime.
God damn,
that fight was in Belfast. Look what happened.
Yeah.
Exactly. You got to keep in mind there when looking at odds. You got to keep the politics of the sport in mind. And it's unfair, but if you're going to be a shrewd gambler, you can't overlook that kind of thing.
It's very good advice, boys. Don't just watch tape. There's a lot of things that go into this, guys. We're gonna turn the page and talk about Haney Norman. I did a debate yesterday with a shout out to Gary from 3D. Guys, if you're not following Gary 3D Boxing, go follow him. My whole goal was creating a space to where we could debate boxing, educated with research and film study, and not get mean-spirited and racist and prejudiced and all that good stuff. And that's what we're building here. So shout out to the whole chat. We got Haney versus Norman, boys. The minute I uploaded my breakdown prediction analysis, I edited and shoot it with good equipment. The comment section, no matter who you choose, the comment section is going to come to get you. I'm going to give the mic over to you boys. Haney versus Norman. How do you see it going?
The second they announced this fight, I've been parlaying this fight for like 4 months. I told you, I don't need the instant gratification. I want the ultimate payoff.
Patience.
I thought this fight.
I got no patience to do that, by the way. I need to learn some Tommy Rainone patience. I need that instant gratification.
Yes, I like the gratification too sometimes, but it's like investing in a stock that I know is going to win in a couple of months, But when they first announced this fight, I thought it should have been a minus 300. I was shocked that Norman was only a minus 130. So I started jumping on it right away. I just don't see Haney beating him. I think that Haney, even at 27 years old, might be past his prime already, as insane as that sounds. I think mentally, if nothing else, I think he's a bit broken. He hasn't rebounded from what happened in the Garcia fight. That was on full display in the fight with Ramirez in his last fight, where he basically just ran around the ring and did just a little bit more than a guy that didn't know how to cut the ring off, throw punches. And now you're fighting a guy that's 24 years old and improving with every fight, and you're fighting a real welterweight and a confident one that can punch. And this is Norman's third fight of the year. I mean, he's in shape. He's ready to go. Where Haney's had a lot of inactivity on top of the weight gain, and then he's pulling himself back down. So I don't know. I think it's a big ask for Haney to win this fight. If Haney is going to win, if Haney somehow does win, it ain't coming by knockout, Johnny. He hasn't had a knockout since 2019, and all of his early knockouts.
Abdulayev.
Yeah. That was his last knockout when he won the title, the vacant title, and all of his knockouts were early in his career at 135 pounds. So I've been betting this two ways. I'm saying to myself, yeah, you know what? Maybe Haney returns to the old form and finds the jab and he moves and somehow he wins a 12-round decision, right? So I've been betting the fight to go the distance as well at minus 200. I've been parlaying that into positive plus odds. So I've been playing it both ways. But in a perfect world, Norman wins a 12-round decision, which is also realistic in the sense that if he hits and hurts Haney a couple of times, Haney knows how to survive. I mean, Haney knows how to grab and hold and move. So, I mean, it's not a foregone conclusion that if he hurts Haney, he finishes him, or if he drops him, he finishes him. But I've been betting Norman on the money line, and then I've been betting the fight as well to go the distance.
Yeah, you see, when Tommy first brought this up, I was playing a little bit devil's advocate, and I'll tell you where eventually Tommy does convince me. The devil's advocate for me was that Norman has been very inconsistent in his career. He's, as a matter of fact, the Santillan fight was a surprise win for him because of that inconsistency that he had shown throughout his career before that. So Santillan was supposed to beat him, and he ends up beating Santillan. So once he ends up beating Santillan, okay, now you got a world champion. But if you've seen him throughout his career, you say, okay, he's got a lot to prove. It's been dominant since the Santillan fight. He had the knockout win over the Puerto Rican guy. I forget his name. And then Cuevas. And then he knocks out Sasaki. With a big knockout, with a real statement knockout, the kind of knockout that really opens eyes, right? But here's where I was playing devil's advocate. Cuevas got the fight beaten out of him right away. Like that guy should have been in a title fight anyway. If you're in a title fight, you got to be the kind of guy that the fight can't be beaten out of you right away. Like Cuevas took a couple of punches and his body language was instantly like, I don't want to be here. You know what I mean? Like that for me, when you're like that, you suck. You don't deserve to be in a title fight. There's guys who deserve more title. There's guys who want it more than you. Like you don't ever. You shouldn't be in a title fight. So for the fact that guy got the fight beaten at him so easily, I don't know how impressive that is as far as convincing me that the inconsistency of Norman is now going to be consistent. And then Sasaki, you can't miss him. You know what I mean? You can't miss him with a punch. But Sasaki, the danger was he was a puncher, but you can't miss him with a punch. That guy's defense is very, very leaky. And Norman, one thing it did show is that Norman's left hook and Norman's power is something to fear a little bit if you're going to fight Norman. So I was thinking of those things, and I was saying, Haney can offset this inconsistency, can really bring out some of this inconsistency of Norman if Haney's boxing well. But then you got to think about the other side of Haney. You got the PTSD factor, because the way he looked in the Ramirez fight showed that maybe he's not over some of the big shots that he took in the Garcia fight. But then I say, okay, maybe that was his one fight, and if he boxes well, he may be able to offset Sasaki. I mean, he may be able to offset Norman. But here's the problem. Tom made a good point today, and I was like, you know what? That's something I do have to consider. The inactivity of Haney. The inactivity of Haney compared to the activity of Norman, because Haney is a timing boxer. Haney's a athletic boxer. He's a timing boxer. So guys like that, with the exception of Crawford, who's a timing boxer and seems that the inactivity doesn't bother him, most timing boxers are going to have a problem if they're not busy on a busy schedule, and then they take tough fights. So from there, that is what has me worried about Haney and starts to then push me over to the Norman side.
So right now, these odds, I thought for sure by now the odds would have shifted towards Haney. I thought for sure, considering this is a huge fight, it's probably one of those fights betting wise that's broken through to the casual, the celebrities, the influencers would be betting on this fight. I thought by now Haney would be the favorite. It still hasn't moved down here in Australia. Literally a coin flip. The interesting thing though is when you look at the method of victories on both ends, Norman at plus 330 by decision and Norman at plus 230 by knockout. Devin plus 125 on points and plus 950 by knockout. If I think the money line's juicy enough. They know my pick. The chat all week. I'm going Norman on the money line. It's hard for me to get past what Devin Haney looked like against Ramirez. It's hard for me to get. He fought so negatively. I just didn't like the optics. I didn't like what he was doing, how he was operating. And since Regis, like you guys already said, this will only be his third fight. I look at their careers as well. Haney's 27 years old. People are talking about Haney's going to be the quicker guy, better reflexes, etc. What version of that Haney are we talking about? Jorge Linares, when Haney was 21, 22, maybe 22 years old? And do fighters, when you look at the trajectory, statistically speaking, of fighters who trend, Norman, Gio, even though that fight against Janelson Boca Chica, that was a no contest due to a cut, Norman got dropped there. Norman got dropped with a nasty, beautiful chopping right hand. And then you watch him against Cuevas, the fight you talked about. He did make an adjustment. He went in against Janelson, no setup, no feint, had Janelson in the corner and walked in and showed everybody in the arena he was throwing the right hand, and then he gets caught with a right hand of his own right. And then you watch that adjustment the next fight, he's here. He did get clipped against Cuevas at the end of the second round. So it didn't go clean, but you could slow-mo, you could kind of see his legs move a little bit. My thing is, though, I don't feel right betting on Haney based off of momentum. Like, it's not a bet that confidently, even what is his path to victory? Jab the entire time? He doesn't like the clinch. When he's in the clinch and he's forced to fight in the pocket, think about when he got wobbled against Ryan, and who else wobbled him? Didn't Linares wobble him?
Linares did, yep.
When you get wobbled, you could train for it however long you've been boxing. The last thing they want you to do, your coach, is long arms, because then he has that's a bad tendency. There's a lot of areas he looks uncomfortable to me. So
he wants nothing to do with inside work either. Haney does not want to fight on the inside at all.
What do you think the game plan for him is going to jab and use lateral movement the entire time? And Brian Norman's a 24-year-old kid savage, not even in his prime yet, who's hungry. That kid's feet faster than people give him credit for, fight IQ better than people give him credit for, and he could crack.
Yeah, it's that's why I said the only way. I mean, again, how does Haney win? The only way he can win is if somehow his movement and his jab is absolute top notch on Saturday, and Norman does not know how to cut off the ring, and then maybe there's a path to a 12-round decision, but the fight still goes the distance. And I feel like I would win on the money line. I'd win on the opposite end of the spectrum as far as betting the fight to go the distance. But I just don't see that happening, because eventually you go swimming, you're going to get wet. Haney's going to get caught eventually. And when he gets caught, he's going to resort to muscle memory, which is to grab and hold and look to survive a little bit. Because if he wants to trade with Norman would love that. And he's going to get clipped again and again.
So the fight going the distance for me is a safe play here, because I did start to lean towards Norman as well, but Norman still has to convince me fully, So for me, the fight going the distance is my personal, pick over anybody, over picking anybody in particular,
Yeah.
Paulie, you got a pro box card this weekend, don't you?
We do. We got a couple of good fights on the card.
Roman Villa, Veron.
Yeah, Veron. Veron is the Argentine Olympian, the junior middleweight.
Are you allowed to talk about those fights or no?
I mean, I can talk about them, but I can't really give a pick technically per se. Although I did think I did say Trujillo. I think Trujillo beats.
Okay. So you talked about.
I'm technically not supposed to if I'm commentating. But yeah.
You got a line on Johnny? Because we don't have a line on that yet, or at least I don't have a line on that in New York.
Yeah, so I got a line. I'll bring it up. It's an interesting fight because because of the big card in Riyadh is flying under the radar. There's actually a few interesting fights I wanted to. I'm going to be selfish here I'm going to ask you guys. So there's a fight going on. It's Suboy versus Quadras. Carlos Quadras is a guy, 36 years old, 37, fought for a world title before, took Bam the distance. He's a 5-1 dog against a former Olympian Suboy who's 2-0. This would be Quadras' 51st pro fight. Did you guys? Do you have any opinion on this fight, Colin?
Guy's
He's
2-0.
he's 2-0. Suboy's 2-0. And in the last 6 months, what did we see? We saw Badr Gaziev lose to Jazza Dickens. He was
Yeah.
a big favorite Olympian, under 10 pro fights. Frankie
And
Rodriguez beat
that French guy got beat, no, in Libya.
Sufi Umaha. He was also another one. So we're seeing, and then Galoya Fai. We're seeing this pattern of like I don't know if it says more about the modern day amateur scene turning pro, or if guys are getting rushed and skipping steps. But we're seeing these vets with over 30 pro fights going in as big dogs against these guys with under 10 pro fights, and the vets are winning. Did you?
I've talked about this with Tommy. We've had discussions on this. It's basically like, there's a greed going on with the managers and promoters that they don't want to develop these fighters anymore. They don't want to take the time and spend the money to develop them. Granted, I know your dollar is worth less today than it's ever been before, right? I mean, the cash is garbage right now. So spending money is more difficult, and so I think it does transcend into the way prospects are being brought up. Like, the only kind of prospect guys want to sign is like the super amateur with like a million amateur fights or the Olympian. Otherwise, they won't. They like a guy like me who was a national amateur champion but didn't make the Olympics. I might have, fallen totally below the radar in this generation, and so in order not to be rushed, because the only kind of guys they want to get are the kind of guys who are like ready for a title in maximum 10, 15 fights at the most, which even that would have been considered rushing them in the old days, let alone the Russians who would fight for titles within 5 or 10 fights, nowadays. So I think it is a bit of a greed where they want these kind of fighters so that they don't have to spend so much money on developing them. And sometimes what happens is they get them beat. They don't develop them enough, and then they rush them too fast. And even as much talent as they have and as much potential as they have, man, you ruin a good prospect. You would make him take a beating or something, and you might alter his trajectory of his career for good.
And Johnny, we noticed the trend when these prospects, they keep getting beat with 10 or less fights.
Even the Cuban, who was the Cuban? Telez, who was it?
Telez.
Yeah, Yenis Tellez.
But Johnny, what the trend is, if you pay attention to all these losses, they're all decision losses, and they all fade the second half of the fight because they don't have the experience factor yet.
Yeah.
So they're front running, but then they end up ultimately losing that fight in the second half of the fight. I think everybody wants a Lomachenko, but I mean, Lomachenko is a once in a lifetime fighter.
Yeah, boys, I've had a clock on because I know Tommy has to get packed and he's leaving from New York to get a plane. Paulie, you got a big weekend with the bare knuckle and pro box, man. I don't know how you guys do it. Before I let you boys go, let them know where that, I watch all of your content. Could you kind of shout out your the show you guys have on YouTube as well?
Yeah, it's Tommy and Paulie's Big Fight Forecast. It's on YouTube. And we gotta get on some other platforms. Actually, I'm not great with technology. Paulie's even worse than me. But,
message me, man. I'll help you out, boys. Come on, now. We have to
learn. We got an Instagram page too. Big Fight Forecast. We got an Instagram page.
Okay. Yeah, on the Instagram. I'll put those links in the description, guys. Thank you so much for spending time with us, and everybody here appreciates you.
Yeah, good chat, guys, man. Good. Happy to be here, man. Thanks.
Thank you, boys. Have fun this weekend in Florida.
Yeah.
All right, chat. I'm gonna stay on. I'm gonna stay on for about 15 more minutes. Tommy, you good?
Yeah. All good.
Okay. Tommy, I'll message you on. I'll call you on WhatsApp.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks for your time, brother. Be safe traveling.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, boys. I'm gonna stay on for about 10 more minutes. We got hopefully you guys like that. That was fun. I've been talking with Tommy behind. I've known Tommy for a little while talking boxing. And Paulie, you guys know Paulie. Paulie's a legend. So I told you guys going into this fight week, this is gonna be a very toxic fight to break down. We know this is what happens in boxing, and it's one of my goals with our channel. Each other, there's gonna be accusations of racism, all that good stuff. But that's not what we do here. We try to have an educated chat. We don't have to agree, guys. Just because somebody disagrees with you doesn't mean you have to call them an idiot or a fuckwit or a retard. You know what I'm saying? So you guys know how to handle yourself. Everybody in the chat who was respectful, I appreciate you. You know who you are. Everybody who was talking shit, you guys could do better, but I'm not here to gatekeep. Talk your shit, and hopefully you never meet anybody in real life that chin checks you. So we're gonna keep it on. I'll take some questions from some of the VIPs, some Johnny guys. If you're not in the Discord, join the punk ass Discord. It's a couple bucks a month, and I'm gonna start doing more VIP only live streams with some of the boys. Appreciate you. Yeah, that was fun, man. I've been interviewing people and writing books for about 10 years. So what I like doing is facilitate last. I'm gonna just wrap this up shortly. We got some super chats in the house. Appreciate the super chat. Appreciate it. See you cracked Haney's chin. Thank you something with the 4.99 super. Normal was shattered in a million pieces. Bill Haney, brother. I love doing this. So, chat, I love the group. I love the community we're building.